Hello everyone. Hi, it's Rose. How are you? Welcome to my channel. I'm so excited you're here. I'm gonna try something new. I'd love to have a little bit of a conversation with you about how I create and how I stay inspired. I am a full-time artist and have been most of my life, something along that line. And I'd like to talk to you about creating authentically and how to create authentically with your junk journaling. If that conversation interests you, and if you want to talk about more about not how to get things right, but how to get real and to learn more about yourself in your journaling process, this might be a conversation you'll enjoy. So what I hope is that you'll just grab something to drink, tea, coffee, and come and sit and have a little chat with me. So, okay, I'll see you soon. Okay, forgive me because I had to put my glasses on. I have not been able to get new glasses yet. These broke last year. I do need to do that for myself, but I just use them when I'm reading. So I've created a little bit of an outline for myself so that I'll stay on track and hopefully not take up a lot of your time. But the first thing I want to do is ask you to just take a minute to breathe and ground yourself. Because I may be asking some questions where you may need a little moment or two for reflection. So I want you to just think about what it means to create more than pages. So what if you weren't just creating pages, but you were connecting to yourself and learning to let go of pressure and perfection and performing and just stayed in the creating. There are times, you know, when you feel very connected to your heart and where crafting or art journaling or any kind of creative project feel uplifting and fulfilling and connected. So what would that feel like if you were able to kind of stay in that space more often and to figure out a process that helps you to stay in that process but helps you to have incredibly well-designed, visually appealing product? Because I have a system that I've been using for a while, which I'm going to share with you next, of how I do that. And I've got kind of a set of guidelines for myself that I aside, which I set as a way of holding my creativity and my connection in real time and space and make that process more effortless and more seamless for me. So the first thing I'm going to say is that this process begins and ends with your heart, yours. And this process isn't about anybody else and what others are creating or what tutorial you saw on YouTube, unless it inspires you. And so that's where I start, is with inspiration. It's really important to learn what inspires you. If you know already, awesome, start there. Just start there. But if you don't know what inspires you, because many of us don't know, maybe some of us are just coming back home to ourselves after raising kids or having a career or traveling. I'm kind of coming home from traveling and kind of being the matriarch of my family and being asked to move into, you know, my own life. And there's ways I'm constantly reconnecting to me and parts of me that I long kind of forgotten. So I want you to think about that. Do you know what inspires you? And if you do, great, this process will be easy for you. But ask yourself when you're thinking about it, you know, like, is it a color? Is it a style? Maybe it's an image that you saw, a picture, a painting, or a graphic. Maybe it's a page on someone's, tutorial. I'm not sure. Only you know. But the point of that being is to learn what sparks emotion in your heart and what brings you joy, especially visually when you see it. So if you don't know, spend some time looking and seeing, and you'll know right away what inspires you and what sparks your creativity versus what kind of doesn't. So if you start there with the decision-making process, it's going to be a lot easier for you to stay engaged in your project and to create something that's authentically from your heart. If it doesn't speak to your heart, it's going to be very difficult to stay in your heart when you're creating. So for me, the creative process and living authentically from my heart as I'm creating means that I do a lot of the head work ahead of time. These are these steps I'm going to show you so that my heart can exist and live fully and freely in a safe space. I live my life a little bit like that too. So let's see. So your heart's role in this is so paramount, right? Because, or whatever part of you that knows when things are true or not true, or what resonates or not resonates, for me it's my heart. Because like the outside pressure of society wants us to compare, contrast, judge, perform, I see so often some of the same similar creators, many using the same influencers, art that sells on a particular scrapbooking, I don't know, has many companies, let's say, right? But the vibe is really specific about what it is. And I know it's very appealing to many people. It's appealing to me too. But when we lean too much into somebody else's stuff, it's important to know the balance of it, which is what inspires you, but what are the things about that particular person's work that inspires you, so you can take that and then make that your own, if that makes sense. So this is how your journaling becomes sacred, is when it's authored from your heart. You will not get away from being influenced by our society, by past design, by television, by media, by friends, by family. But as long as you know that that's what is helping you to either be conscious or unconscious of your decisions, that's going to be super important. So the authenticity comes from the feeling behind it and the choices that you make in relation to that. So this isn't it's not a rule book, because I will tell you at the very end, the number one rule is to break your own rules. So I will preface everything I tell you next about the rules with that one. It's a rhythm, it's a process, it's a path, and it's just a guideline to help you to kind of steer into your heart as you're creating. So these are the steps in my creative flow. First of all, I determine the intent of my journal. Okay, that's important. Why? Why am I making this? Am I making this as a gift for my daughter? Am I going to be thinking about her with that intention the whole time that I create? Is this a gift for me? Is it something that I want to remember the experiences I had that year? Or is it for my granddaughter, which might be, do I want to share things that are ancestral and inspirational to her? And there are so many different intents, but the intent here is the anchor and probably the like splitting point of where my other decisions go. So the next thing I'd say is to choose a style. Unless you inherently know your style, and if you know your own style, choose your style, okay? Choose your style. But if you don't, you can choose something that you're seeing you might want to try that might resonate with you. Botanical, vintage, boho, grunge. I think there's quite a few more. Victorian. Some of it I even love that's like fantasy. I saw a journal today that was a space person, and oh my gosh, I just thought it was beautiful. So whatever the style is, let that begin to influence the next choices that follow. So the next thing is to pick a color scheme. And this is more from a design background, and I will mention to you that I do have that 30 years in this field, and as a graphic artist and as a classically trained artist, which a bachelor's degree in painting. These are some of the backbone of some of the things I even learned in the beginning of my art journey. So one of them is to choose a color scheme. And for me, it's important to choose like 3 to 5 colors and stick within that. If I choose that and I define it and I keep that kind of as my guiding theme in the things that I pick next, it really helps me to have cohesion in my art journaling. So I would say to you, I like to pick 2 darker colors or darker in tonality. They can still be pastels, but so that I have enough in that choice of the 3 or 5 that allow me some play not only with the color choice, but does the color choice match the emotional tone of my journal? I can pick that right then, which will set the emotional tone by choosing the color scheme. Is it vibrant? Is it happy? Is it summery? Is it more orange hues, brown hues, autumn hues? What your color scheme can determine so much about how the journal itself feels, or any artwork for that matter. And so, and limiting it, making sure that you have enough lighter colors and darker colors helps you to also create the visual contrast that helps items that you want to highlight stand out. So color scheme to me is essential. Note it, write it down somewhere, and maybe even pick it if that's helpful to you. I don't know. The next thing I'd say is start thinking about symbols or images that have meaning for you. Like, for example, one of my favorite artists is Gustav Klimt. Always been that way. And what do I love and inspires me about Gustav Klimt? What I love and inspires me about Gustav Klimt is the little round images that he uses all the time. They're like different types of circles he uses, and the circle is super symbolic for me. It symbolizes karma and, you know, coming full circle on a lot of things. Also, the spiral symbol is another one, and these are things that he does that I noticed I enjoy too. And he uses gold leaf. So I'm going to take some inspiration from something from Gustav Klimt. I'm not going to copy his style. I've learned how to do that in art school, but I'm not going to do that. But I am going to take 1 or 2 elements that I know really lift me up and use them as symbols. So the other symbols that I use often are birds, like bluebirds, and all of these things are resonant and important to me personally. And the idea is for you to begin to use some of those things as a way, as a go-to for you to get to know what matters to you and what means more in your journaling. So it's not just how they visually look, but the symbolism of the particular item, if you can find some. And it's okay too in the beginning to just pick things that inspire you. that don't have meaning, but if some do, maybe it's like I love turquoise and like turquoise jewelry or belt buckles and things that have a blossom on it, because I got a belt buckle from my dad when I was like 7, and it literally was one of my favorite things for my whole life, and I don't know where it went and I miss it dreadfully. But that is something where that's a symbolic item I'm going to keep on hand, so that as I go to the next part, which is shopping, right? So let's gather the items for our journal based on those decision-making things prior. And the first thing I'm going to suggest is to shop your own stash. Keep in mind, look for symbols that you enjoy or images that you enjoy, particularly with fussy cuts, and things that go in alignment with the journal. So maybe it's a particular color lace that goes with your color scheme, or other embellishments like buttons, or maybe it's a charm theme that that goes with it. But shop your stash first, shop your scraps, and see what you can find there before you necessarily go out and buy anything, because creativity comes from clarity and not from clutter, if that makes sense to you. So if you do choose to purchase, I'm going to beg of you a couple of things, and with your usage of these items. One, please pay attention to copyright. That could be a whole 3 videos for me, by the way. I'm not going to dive into it really much here, but if you must, as you're choosing, pay attention to copyright. If you make that decision ahead of time before you're in the middle of creating, you're not going to reach for something that might violate copyright that your heart gets attached to having. So it's about limiting the choices that your heart has and knowing what resonates most with that. So purchase with intention. Do not purchase in impulse. Do not justify the purchase, and please do not make the use of or the purpose of your journal to be using up what you have that you feel justified that you need to use because you purchased it and because you're storing it, but you're not really inspired by it. I mean, you can go that route if you want, but it's not going to create more inspiration for you. Not unless you're really super challenged by just having a challenge, and many of us are not. So the other thing I want to say is, when you purchase, think about your values for a minute, because I do want to make one point here. So what is your money supporting? Your hard-earned money? Is it supporting a China chain? Is it supporting a big corporation? Because maybe that is important to you. Maybe, maybe, I don't know, because I'm not judging in that way, because I can only speak to what inspires me and how I make purchase. It is really important for me because of what I do to try and earn money. I'm really trying to support myself, and I'll be transparent about that. I never had a big career. My health has never been sufficient enough to allow me to step into my profession fully. I'm hoping upon hopes that I'm able to pull this off. And if I don't and I can't, it's okay, because the truth be told, I'm leaning and learning with my heart authentically. That's really what matters to me most. So that's what matters to me most with my purchasing too. So with the issue of copyright, a lot of what's happened for me is I started to when I was restoring digital items that I found online, Victorian wallpaper, ticket stubs, postcards, other like I love font, like other font things or lettering items, particularly like invitations or calling cards or little ad cards, you know, like they had in the 1800s. One thing that really began to bother me considerably was that I didn't know who the artist was. And though it may fall technically in the public domain, it was like, you know, made 300 years ago. I didn't know who the artist was. And that was an artist to me that went unnamed, unrecognized, and a corporation that got the power and the payment. I think that's true of like, especially like the Impressionist era. We utilize paintings and stuff like Manet or Monet, Van Gogh. That artist's work is reproduced by corporations, and because it's in the public domain, somehow we find that to be more acceptable. Okay, as long as I know where something's coming from, like I mentioned, my inspiration from Klimt, then, you know, that's fine if it's in the public domain. But I'm also going to ask you, like, does that artist family, do they benefit from that? I wonder where the chain of your money goes. And is it more ethical to utilize items that we justify are in the public domain? Type, text, all the things that you see in your visual world are created by someone. Packaging, clothing, what you see on TV. When you go into the grocery store, someone has like purposely thought about where they place items on the shelf and what the labels look like. I mean, you are constantly being sold things. And this process, this creative process for me is more about taking ownership of what you create and how you create it and being aware of what influences you in that process. One of those things happens to be where you get your images from. And I'm going to guarantee you something right now without saying much more. I own every single bit of the design process that I go through, and I've actually chosen over public domain images to use AI. And I don't want this to be a video about AI, so please do not flood me with that. But I do make that choice for this particular reason. When I'm very aware of where my influence comes from, the style, the lighting, the composition of the image, the color scheme, what I want the person to be doing. When I have the skills to create that on my own, but would take me 20 times longer, especially with my disability, I could paint that for you, but you're not going to be willing to pay for that with me. Most people want the freebies on my coffee site and forget that even donating $1 or $2 could, like literally, if every person that goes to my coffee site and downloads a Friday freebie, if one of the 4 times they come to do that, they gave me $1, oh my gosh, I would be so happy because I'd be able to create endlessly for my members whatever they wanted, really. So that was off on a tangent, and I'm sorry, but what I'm actually really trying to say is that, you know, pay attention to where your money goes, because, you know, $1 in one area to support a disabled artist who's a woman who's trying to reclaim her life, by placing your energy and your flow there, it may do the same thing for you in your life. I'm not sure, but it's possible. And so I'm not saying not to buy things that inspire you that are from big scrapbooking companies or other big creators or anything like that, but just saying to you that I use AI because I author every single step of that process, every single one of it, every one, from the way the surface design looks. And I'm able to create at a little bit faster pace, and things that look like the items I was trying to restore. And I know that because I've made all of those decisions, that's authored by me. So if you're purchasing from me, know that many of my items do have that element. I create something, an image, and then I take it into Photoshop. And every manipulation, every plan out, the whole idea of the journal in the beginning has been mine. The idea of the paper, the idea of everything I'm creating, I'm just using another tool to create something. So the urge with this is to shop with intention, and don't take my values or what I've said to be what rings true for you. That's not the important part of this. The important part is to know what your intention is and what your values are, and shop with that in mind. Me, I'm not going to shop and buy more. That's more stuff I have to store and get rid of that forces me to feel trapped in my creative process. I love the digital process because I can store endlessly and pick from it and print when I want. I'm not sorting physically through organizing more and more things, which used to take up a lot of my time. So let's move on, or we'll be here forever. Sorry about the rant. You can, I ask for forgiveness. I'm not trying to upset anyone here. So the next thing, once you have those things together, I want you to think about the structure of your journal. Because this can determine a lot, the style of pages you choose. And think about the signatures too. So maybe you don't have the cover design because you're not exactly sure what's going to go in the inside, but you can decide the signatures and what the kind of pages are that you want to have in there. Choose those with your color scheme in mind. And with your signatures, this is the next one, is to use repetition. So using repetition is almost essential in creating a cohesive looking design element. So when you're looking at the structure of your journal and you're creating your signature pages, you'll want your signature pages to have the same number. Like I said, you can break the rules anytime you want, but that's generally how I think and what I do. So keeping the structure of each signature similar, which is like maybe 2 background pages and 2 pages with an image, and 2 music pages and 2 coffee dye pages. I'm giving you a sampling. You choose. But what I do is then I keep each signature the same number of pages, and then the same kind of structure, so that when I put those pages together in a full journal, there's some cohesiveness and some repetition, and that really is part of what overall sets the tone and the stage for a beautifully designed item. When I start there, getting to my heart, because the pages are already kind of in the right kind of order, that's one less design decision I have to make with my head, and more being in my heart I can be. So that's going to be the same thing with repeating other elements. So I limit myself on the background pages that I can use. And one of the background pages that I always use is a coffee dyed paper. And that's important. So that is a repeated element in most of my journals for me anyway. It's because I love to make ruffle from it, and I'll tell you in a little bit more about why I would choose a paper like that. And then I do 1 or 2 background pages that are like a seamless tile that I could use for ephemera and for repeated effect in design elements that I make, especially with scraps. Okay, what about repetition? Repeating symbols. So I generally pick 1 or 2 pocket styles and 1 or 2 tag styles for that particular journal, and then I repeat the way that element looks. So if my pockets, I choose 2 style of pockets, they can vary greatly with 2 style of pockets, but then different papers or whatever items I put on it, where I put it on the page, what fussy cuts I embellish it with, or what other trim or whatever. But if I keep the same shape of the tag and the pocket, that creates another element that's repetition and not something that I have to think about. Sometimes it's easier for me to prepare those items as like blank templates in the color scheme that I'm working with. So if I have those on hand and I grab a pocket, I know I'm going to want to make a pocket. That's another design decision I don't have to make with my head at the time. I can just grab from my heart. Okay, so this becomes kind of like the tempo or the beat of your journal, just like in music. Something that creates the structure that we allow kind of the melody, which I would say is more like your creative flow is. And I'm so sorry, I never know where to look on the camera, so please forgive me. You're going to use the repetition to create rhythm, okay, and a heartbeat of your project. Okay, the next thing you want to do is think about the function of the individual items that you want to create, right? Like, you know, I sometimes in my head say, okay, I'm going to have this signature is going to have about 8 tags and about 8 pockets, and I use those when I'm determining the next part, which is this like, do I want something to open and close? Do I want it to store? Do I want it to decorate? Do I want it to move? These are things where you let the function of an item determine the shape of it, and maybe even like the paper that you're printing on. Okay, so another thing is to play with the texture surfaces. So do you like matte or do you like glossy? That's one thing. Do you like to use a lot of book page? I don't know. Do you like a painterly quality? Do you like a Victorian? These are things that'll give you more information that'll help you to resonate with your heart. And then as you're building those pages, think about your background, your middle ground, and your foreground. And note that probably as you're putting your page together, you're going to want a focal point, not like 5 focal points, but I would say probably not more than 1. You could have 2 and get away with it, but probably 1, and 1 major item that you're going to be drawn to, and the other items are supportive of that role. Okay, so, oh my gosh, I've talked for 30 minutes. I'm so sorry. I'm just looking at my notes here. So when you have all of that done and you're ready to sit down, the next thing I kind of want to share is that it's important to leave breathing room. So when I'm designing things, the coffee dyed paper as an element is one that is used a lot, but that can be like in borders or pockets, in tags. Let's see. And leaving it blank, that's the important part I want to mention here. And allowing it to breathe with blank pages and empty pages is another design element. So the absence of something, the absence of design. Make sure you use, one of your neutral pages in that way. It could be just even maybe the pattern that you're using and just leaving that alone with a pattern page. That's kind of the... Okay, so with all of that said, there's a next part of things that's really important. With all of those steps, the most important one still is to follow your heart and let your heart guide all of those. But if you set that up, you can sit down intentionally and begin to create from your heart, with your heart, in a much better way, because you can leave your mind behind because you've made most of the vital decisions ahead of time. So tips here: rest, reset, and tend to your space. So that means when you're tired, take a break. Take a walk in nature. Nurture your soul. If you nurture your soul it will nurture you and it will nurture your heart, I promise. Declutter your space. That means that declutter your stash often. Like if you are someone that must buy physical items that carry energy, particularly antique items, for me, I believe that all things carry energy. So like having a lot of that can really stagnate your creativity because you have to wade through the energy of other things. And for me, it just hasn't helped me to get more into my creative space. But if you're really good and you prefer organizing and spending your time doing that, and it's something you love, this isn't a criticism of that. It's just me sharing what does work for me in this particular instance. So you want to maintain your space with organization and the ease to grab your tools, right? Like, can you grab them easily? Is the space cleaned? Have you organized your scraps enough to where you can grab them easily? Do you know where your glue is, your scissor, and so before you sit down, if what you do is make sure you have what you need close by you, it'll help. Because when I don't do that and I'm distracted, gone to look for scissors or something else, it can be a while before I get back to my craft space because I got distracted. So guard your time that way too, by taking care of the space around you and the tools that you have. So with that said, what I'm going to tell you is to just end with where you started, which is being connected to your heart. Let go of the structure, let go of the flow, let go of the design choices, and as you're creating, just stop and listen to your heart. And it's not, for me, I don't get words when this is happening for me. There now is a no mind space that I'm in when I'm creating, and that's because I've flexed my creativity muscle quite a bit in my life. And this can be a way for you to even practice mindfulness if that's important to you. I'm an advocate of that because I'm a yoga and meditation teacher. So embrace your mistakes. Don't be afraid to make them. Just try again. And use that practice in your life too. Sit down, try, connect to your heart, and do something. And if you aren't in love with it, try again. It's just paper, just glue. And I promise you, you'll grow from that space anyways of creating. So it's a win-win for you. So the only thing that really matters here is connecting to your heart and expressing it authentically, whatever that looks like for you. So, and just some closing notes is that for me, my journal isn't a project. It's actually a relationship. It's a relationship to something that I'm going to conduct with care in every part of the process. It's a place to listen to myself and to not judge myself and to encourage myself, particularly in the creative endeavors that I find to be challenging for me. I would say if your heart isn't in it, it's just not enough. At least it's not enough for me. Take a minute, if you're still with me, to leave some comments in the comment box. I'd love to open up this discussion on tips or things that help you to stay more authentic in your creating. And I'm so glad you're here. Thank you. Thank you so much. Hope to see you in another video. Thanks so much. I'm Rose. Oh, and if you like the content, I'd love the support, the subscription, or come on over to my coffee site and download some freebies. Okay, thanks.